My woodworking shop is fairly small. It's around 13 by 22, so not very big. And as you can see, I've got it fairly well filled up with tools, but I've got a layout which I'm fairly happy with. I could obviously use more space, but I figured I'd show you what my layout is. Central in my shop is this Robot woodworking bench. I have a video on that in more detail of its features and how well it works. This is a phenomenal thing. It's one of the first woodworking projects I made in here, so definitely make yourself one of these. Don't wait. I've got this workbench behind it. It mostly collects crap, but it works good for setting tools on when I'm working on this bench, so this stays clutter-free. I've got my clamps hung up around my chimney. I've got my scrap wood pile over my wood stove. Normally this rack here is for if I have firewood that's not quite dry enough, I put it on top of this rack to help dry the wood. But I've got my scrap wood on there. I know it's a little close to the stove, but it's not going to catch on fire. I've got my other scrap bin here, and good lighting. What else can you see? This back workbench, this really should get redone. It's on my old kitchen vanity, and it's really not a very good setup. The top is actually 2 layers of melamine. I was originally going to use these as molds for making concrete countertops, but I didn't have a place to store them, so I put them on top of here as a workbench. That's why I've got 2 layers of those. It makes a pretty nice work surface, but the cabinet and drawers underneath is really not all that great. Let's see, what else can you see from this angle? My clamps, workbenches. So let me change the camera angle. Let's see. So on this wall of the shop, I've got my miter saw set up. It used to be a little bit lower because I recently got a mobile stand for it, and the mobile stand, you have to mount on these things onto it. So I'll probably try to recess this down a little bit because it's a little bit too high right now. But if I want to cut something long, I can run a piece over here, and then I've got an adjustable stand which sits on my bandsaw, so I can get just the right height, and I can cut maybe about 7 feet to my cabinet over in the corner there. And this is built out with angle iron, so there's no downward support. So this jointer, it's a 8-inch American Sawmill Machinery Company jointer. This jointer can go underneath here and tuck away and get me more room in my shop. And let's see. Then I've got my bandsaw. This is a Crescent 32-inch bandsaw. I got this from an estate sale. It was in some guy's basement. I've got a video on picking up this one and refurbishing it. It still needs some work. I'd kind of like to make at least some guards on this side and down by my feet in case I manage to break a blade, because that's where I'm most likely to get hurt. It'll break probably here because that's where the tension side is, then whip and either hit me in the face or take out my shins. So I'd like to make some sort of guard for this, but I obviously haven't gotten around to it yet. I've also got my fence on here now for resawing lumber. I've got that set up here, just clamps onto the table. In this corner I've got just a big drawer cabinet. This was for programming data filing systems. I believe this is a drawer that was for punch cards, so it's supposed to have punch cards in it, and something's jammed. There we go. So it's got really nice drawers. It's really heavy. What else about this side of the shop? I've got my upper shelves. Thin curly maple I've resawn. My air purifier thing, that should probably be moved more to the ceiling in the middle of the shop, but it's hard to find a good spot for that. Let's see, stereo system, need that. and various fasteners and stuff over in this corner. Over here, I also have my lathe. I don't do all that much turning, but I've got a lathe. So that mostly collects junk and miscellaneous stuff because it's a flat spot and a small shop. So I got most of my woodworking tools from my grandfather-in-law's estate after he passed away. And one of them was this table saw. And it's really too big for the shop. I can't really utilize its full capacity. Between the blade and the fence, you can rip 52 inches wide, or a little bit over half a sheet of plywood if you want to go that direction. But this left-hand side of the bench just never gets used. And I've got this trim piled up because this is going to go in my house. So I've got this pre-finished, so it's a bit of a mess. One thing that I did add on to it was this little outfeed table. This thing is, I know people talk about writhing knives as being one of the most important safety features of a table saw, and I'm not going to say they're necessarily wrong. Mine, I can't set one up easily because of the design of the saw, so that's a drawback of the saw. But one other really useful safety feature is this outfeed table, even the short one, because before that's less than 8 inches to the end of the table. So if you're ripping a piece, you'd have to push down to stop it from falling off the edge. So you're pushing down over the saw blade, and that just seems like a recipe for slipping and losing fingers or cutting yourself open. So even this little foot-wide piece makes a huge difference in how well the pieces get supported. And then I've got a leaf that I can fold up and get even more distance. And what is this? This is now, what, 3 feet or so between here and the blade? So I can rip a 6-foot board before it even starts to want to tip. So this makes a huge difference in how smoothly I can operate the table saw. Because really, when you get hurt on a table saw, it's going to be probably because you were rushing or struggling to hold a piece. If you're having to force things, it's just asking for something to slip and you to go in the blade, or if you're rushing. So those are the times in my opinion, you're most likely to get hurt. Of course, having the other safety features would help that, but and like I said, I did look into getting a writhing knife for this, but it's not an easy thing to do. And my table saw also, the blade guard does not come on and off quickly, so then it just gets taken off and never put back on again. So that's a fault of this table saw. I also have my drill press, also from my grandfather-in-law's estate sale. This is a McTool from 1983, and it still works great. I don't use it a heck of a lot or that hard, but it's a drill press. It works just fine. It's on a little cabinet with drawers. Then I've got my dust collector in the corner, and this works really well. I got a pleated filter upgrade for it, and it really makes a big difference. Before, the bags, when you turn it on, you just see this fine dust oozing out of the bags. And then I got thicker bags, and they worked well for just a little while, and then it seemed like the dust slowly managed to permeate its way through the bag, and then those were just as dusty as the other ones. So this pleated filter really makes a big difference. I would like to get ducting run up to my jointer, so up along the ceiling and down, but running the flex hose along the floor works. So if something works, it's hard to get motivated to make it even better. For a planer, I've got this Grizzly 20-inch planer. It doesn't even have a model number on it, but it's from 1990. I upgraded it with a Shelix cutter head. So it's got a segmented cutter head and carbide inserts, and it works wonderfully. This is a great planer. It could use, it's only a 3 horsepower. It could use more power if you're planing something wide. I've got even planing pine, but if you're doing like an 18-inch wide pine board, you can only take off a 16th. You can't take off the full 1/8 that this is supposed to be capable of. But this is a great planer. And it's near the door here, so I can wheel it this way and plane short stuff. Or I can spin it around and plane long stuff into my shop and keep this on the concrete floor. So yeah, I can plane a 16-foot board, well, not in my shop, but with the planer in my shop. I have to open up the door, obviously. Over on this bench, I've got my hollow chisel mortiser made by Shopfox. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing. There's a yard sale and a bunch of stuff, and this guy had it out there, so I was like, I kind of wanted to try one, so I got it. It works fairly well. It'll do up to a 1/2 inch mortise, but I found that you can actually do a wider one by sort of progressively working your way along. Some of the stuff is not exactly the most precise, but it seems to do the job, and it certainly is faster than chiseling. Up here I've got glue, sandpaper, more glue, sandpaper, paintbrushes, general hand tools scattered around. Underneath this bench I've got a bunch of random crap, routers, power tools and stuff. So this bench could really get redone into something better. But like I said, it's perfectly functional, and then to redo it I have to take it out and put all this stuff somewhere, so it ends up being a bit of a big project. For my miter saw, I've got a shop vac and a cyclone separator. I'd like to get these linked up a little bit better, make like a cart for them to go on at some point, but once again, I haven't really gotten around to it yet. I use the dust collector for the miter saw because it throws a lot of fine sawdust, and this got a Makita miter saw. It's got the one where it doesn't extend out the back, so I can mount it closer to the wall. I really wanted that feature, and it does fairly well as far as collecting its sawdust. It's not perfect, but it's better than without it. I also use the vacuum and cyclone setup when I'm using my orbital sander. It works really well and saves me running the giant dust collector. The giant one would probably work just fine, but it's a lot louder, takes more power, so the vacuum cleaner with the little cyclone does the job. This is a closer view of the punch card cabinet that I have. Got marking gauges and stuff in this drawer. The drawer is kind of self-locked, so it's a little bit hard to open sometimes. Just all sorts of goodies in here. I don't like that things are hidden, but it's great having so many different drawers and dividers. So this is a really useful addition to the shop. All of these cabinets are from a kitchen remodel that a friend of mine did. For some reason they tore these out and wanted new ones, and these seem like pretty darn good cabinets, so I stuffed them up in my shop. So I've got one there, 2 over there, then those 2 over the workbench. So on the outside of my wood shop, I've got this pod. It fits 4x8 sheets of plywood. Got just some random stuff in there now, some OSB, some other stuff, but I didn't have a good place to store plywood, obviously not in my shop because it's way too packed, and I had it leaning up against the corner of my garage, and that was just a pain in the neck. So I made this, cleaned up the garage some. I've got a video on that, so you can check that out. Check out how I made the pod and more about it. But this has been great. Still haven't got around to putting a door on this end. On the list of projects. So here's the front of my shop. Got a chair that needs re-rushing. Sawhorse, which I'll do a video on that. Got a new sawhorse design. And wood storage up in that loft. I'll show you what's up there. I'm sure you can't see much in the back there, it's kind of dark, but I've got my lumber storage up here. That goes way back there. I need to get up here and organize it. There, believe it or not, there is an organization system to this. So I've got sections and piles up there, different types of wood, but everything kind of gets piled at the entrance first, and I have to go up here and crawl around and put everything in its proper spot. So that's a bit of a pain. I have my resident wasp nest. These guys are fairly docile, the ones that just make the little honeycomb thing. So I haven't sprayed them yet. We've got a peace treaty. If they sting me, I spray them. And if they don't sting me, they get to live there. So there's a whole bunch of them. In here there was more around the door. So there's more in the back. But like I said, they're pretty docile. So that type, just a honeycomb. Well, more wasp nests. And of course, mouse traps. I need to set the trap line up here again. I've been catching a few around in the lower sections of the shop. So, yep.
If you like this video, subscribe, hit the like button, and check out my other videos. I have a wide range of tool reviews, machining, farming, random projects I do, so check out my other videos, and thanks for watching.